Hello, my name is Jennifer Fullerton, and I am here to talk about labeling. And I want to start off by telling a fun story that I think will kind of bring that idea home. When I was in fourth grade, I lived in Germany. My dad was a pilot, and I got to travel all over the place. It was very exciting, and I got to learn about a lot about culture. But in the fourth grade, I was still pretty naive, very naive, and the only thing I had ever learned about different like colors and races really was on TV, because in my small hometown in California, we really were just a bunch of white farmers. That was really it. So when we went to Berlin, my experience got a lot more diverse because there was a lot of people from all over the United States, and all of a sudden I was going to a school with a lot of different cultures, and it was my first experience going to school. Well, except for one little boy was black in my school in California, but other than that, it was that's where I really saw had my first experience with all these different cultures. Now, with that in mind, here's this little fourth grader, and she's tromping around downtown Berlin with her friend, and we were on the Kudamm, which is this huge shopping street, and it has many different train stations along the way. But I needed one to be able to get home before dark, because that was the rule. You have to be home before dark and before dinner. So I'm racing around, and I'm looking for the train station. I can't find it anywhere. And lo and behold, on the corner is this wonderful black man. And he was just standing there. My savior was waiting for me. I went racing up to him. I yanked on his jacket. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm lost. True fashion, right? I'm just shouting out my whole life story. And he just looks at me and says, Ich spreche kein English. What? What do you mean you don't speak English? I don't get it. You're black. Aren't you in the army? No, he wasn't. I don't know where he was from. He just did not speak English. But that's a really good example of how we're given these ideas of what people are based on a really young age. I was really young, and all my experiences all came from TV, from Sesame Street or Schoolhouse Rock, and I loved culture. I ate it up, but I hadn't had any experience with it in real life. And I think that it's really important to remember that as we're getting older in this classroom, this life skill classroom that we're just continuously learning from, we're just getting more and more information, and we're filtering it, and we're putting it in these boxes, right? In these little categories that make sense to us based on our own experiences. And we're all different. It's kind of like we all have our own separate classrooms because it does get filtered differently. And there has to be some tolerance to be able to allow people to be their own beings and their own selves and have their own experiences and their own chances for success. So I say that because, one, I think it's an important distinction to make, is that life skills is an ongoing class. You are going to be learning things in life skills whether you want to or not for the rest of your life until the day you die. That's when the classroom closes. That's when the door closes, for sure. But up until that point, you're going to continuously be learning how, even if it's just to be able to learn how to say goodbye. It's going to be a lesson. So I'm curious, there's lots of different theories, but because we're in this classroom, I can't say for sure. But I'd like to ask, why is it that if we know that labeling people hurts their identity, hurts their sense of self, well-being, their ability to provide for family, there's emotional health, as we get older, why do we continue to do it? As we learn more, why is it still important for us to feel better at someone else's expense, to pull them down so we can get up? And why are we teaching our kids that? And we do it on an ongoing basis. And I don't think in many cases, it's not malicious. It's not intentional. Sometimes it is, right? But in many times, it's just that's what we were taught. It goes and it fits nicely in our categories, and it's easy for us. And we need some things to be easy. So I know for sure that I stumble often when I'm out and about. I love to learn, so I just continuously try to gather as much information as I can. As a matter of fact, I'm sure I'll be labeling in this very, very conversation about the dangers and the problems with labeling, because it's habitual. It's something that you form a habit in, and I'm just trying to just speak to you from my heart so that hopefully it reaches you in your heart, where if for a minute you think about how you respond to labels, or how you teach labels, how you teach the people that you're responsible for. And that includes pretty much anybody that comes in contact with you, right? Then this is my time is worthwhile right now, just for that very reason, to have people think. And I know that there are people out there who we would label fanatical, that really want to just make sure that they don't do any labels. And God bless them, because with that kind of dedication, that's what really, they are the example. They are. And then there's some of us that are just students. And then there are some of us that just still need to enter the classroom and say, I'm willing to learn, because it is an ongoing lesson. So with that being said, I wanted to think on a level where I touched on just a second ago, with regards to being able to provide for family. Now, I worked in a prison starting in 1996. I was fortunate enough to have an aunt that wrote a wonderful program that was about social skills and restructuring, and teaching team building and communication, and stress management, anger management, values, all these just really great lessons. And it took about 3 months to finish the course. And without fail, every inmate would come to me and say, Jen, why didn't we learn these sooner? Not like we wouldn't have committed crime. I'm not saying that. But why aren't these more available? And, we didn't really have a good answer. There's not funding, who's in office. Perhaps it's just where the learning curve is at the moment. But we did listen, and we opened up an alternative school for teen moms to just kind of reach in a little bit sooner. Now, then all the teen moms would come up to me and say, Jen, this is great. I really, you don't really use this stuff though, right? And I said, well, yeah, I mean, I do. I don't bring a book and read verbatim what it's saying, but I put it into my life, and I infiltrate it, and I make it work so that, I can continuously learn and become happier and more productive, more successful, and learn how to communicate with you better, etc. And they said, well, gosh, if I bring this stuff home, I'm going to get beat up. They're not going to listen to me. And I thought about their lives, and I thought about where their beginnings were. And it was true. That they would be made fun of if they tried to use some good conflict resolution skills. Their conflict resolution skills were, kind of who yelled louder or who hit harder. So I get it. It was a good point. So then I was thinking, well, it was just always in the back of my mind, how can we now kind of sneak those skills in so that people are using them? Because let's face it, when you're in that kind of environment, and people are, they're just really trying to provide for their families, and they're trying to make ends meet, and it's stressful. It's stressful when you don't have enough money to provide for a family and be able to and to do it without committing crime and not have victims. And so when you have a younger person that's coming up to you and trying to use these skills, I get it that it's difficult. So and you certainly don't want any kind of office or state office to be involved in the family if you can avoid it. So, gosh, it's a tricky question. How do you infiltrate and try to help skills that are going to help you not just in your family lives with communication and stress management, but also be able to get a job, and these skills are hands down, all, in some cases, people have stressed that they're more important than an college education or degree, I should say, depending on the job. Just saying. So, if you can put on your resume that you are able to manage stress, for example, well, I can think of a lot of jobs that would be very helpful with, and that they would be able to apply for. So now we've got all of these skills. Now let's say that this little path I'm on, or my calling, that we find some success. Now here's my problem, and this is where I really need help from society. And it doesn't matter if it's just in my general area, because it's the world. It's everybody has these skills. Everybody needs this message, because once we've put in the efforts, and when I say we've, everybody in every field put in their efforts to help whoever with whatever piece of their lives they need support in. How is that person who's now had these new skills given to them able to break free of a label that's been assigned to them? Because it's not easy, and it certainly isn't easy when the application for the job says, mark here if you're ever been convicted of a crime. Mark here if you're a sex offender. These people are getting out, people. They're going to be coming out into society. They are going to need to be successful. They are going to need to get jobs. They're going to have to provide for families. Now that we've put all this investment in, not just money, but time, dedication, hard work, theirs, mine, yours, how can we, if we're making it so difficult for them to break free of a label, how are they going to be successful? And don't we want them to be successful? And then take that same label, and why is it we're assigning it to them in the first place? Is it just me? I'm telling you, people, in order to keep it easy for ourselves, people tend to bring people down just out of comfort to put themselves up, or again, because it's convenient. So they see someone and they're overweight. Well, that's that fat chick over there. Or it's that dude over that dumb guy, the Joker over there. It's really almost impossible to then not, when I hear that, it's going to bring me down. It doesn't matter. I can have a great self-esteem, but it's like, it's going to start something. And you take a label like convict or anything like that. Now they have to provide for their family, and they're trying to use new skills, and they're trying to break free of from a system that has been able to provide for them in some way, shape, or form, right? So that's a tall task. So now we have all of these labels, and I've made this little slide here, but all of a sudden, all this you're a hypocrite, you're dumb, you're a dreamer, you're a joker, lazy, all this stuff is crowding around on us. How can we break free of all of this and not just want to go back to being what was convenient or easy? I don't know. I think it's safe to say that we can agree that when this stuff crowds your self-talk, and you're in your head, and this is what you go to bed with, and this is what you talk through a monitor with, it's harder for me to talk right now to you, because all of these things are coming at me, and we all have them, and yet we assign them to other people. Why? It's mean. It's not helpful. And it certainly isn't meeting the ends of why you, there's a reason that the jails continuously grow or stay at the same level, because there's no wiggle room. They can't get out, and there's still more stress. And so they're going to go back in to prison. The recidivism rate's going to continue to grow, especially if we're not willing to let them change and be successful. Okay. So my thought on that is that were we, and it's not easy, were we to just work on ourselves, then that moment, again for me, that moment for me when I can just have that impact with one person, job well done, continues to grow, and I don't have to be attached. I don't have to have some kind of recognition or assignment that's been successful. It's kind of like, I love this analogy. I love this picture of someone running up to the top of a mountain and taking a feather pillow and just breaking it open with a knife and letting the feathers fly all over the place. And they just go everywhere. And you don't know how far those feathers are going to fly, and you don't know who they're going to touch, and you don't know what little girl's going to find one and give it to someone else, or a little boy's going to find it and give it to someone else. You don't know. It's kind of like that same analogy is used if you call someone a name or say something bad about them. You don't know how far it can go and how far it travels. And so the analogy original is that if someone's asking for an apology, or you're asking for an apology, the idea is that you just ask someone to go gather all the feathers. If you can go grab all those feathers and bring them back to me, then I'll apologize, because then we know how far the damage has gone. But I always like to think of that in the reverse, where the positive goes too. If I take those feathers and I throw them out on that hill and I just let them fly everywhere, it's really beautiful, first of all. Just saying. But it's also, you don't know how far they go, and you don't know how much your positive impact can have. And we all make a difference when we act collectively, individually, together. So that's my wish for having some type of impact. Now, this can go even further. So we've talked about the inmates and my experience in jail, and we've touched a little bit on Germany and just how interesting. The experience in Berlin was pretty extreme, and I like to kind of switch it up a little bit, because it's not always about the bully in school. I mean, we can certainly go there if we talk about the bully in school. Why are they a bully? Just curious. If you think about it for a second, they're created. It's not out of the womb a bully. So something's happened to them that's making them act out, and then we assign them a role. Now, the next time you see them, are they still the bully? Or because they've been getting some therapy, they've been getting help and trying to break free of the stuff that was really haunting them before. So what point do we stop calling them the bully? At what point, I know it's really easy when someone says, oh gosh, you've lost a lot of weight. Okay, so I can shed the fat label. That's fantastic. But what about bully? What about when it's something that's internal and it impacts them on an internal level? I don't think it's necessary to say the word bully at all. I say it now for the purposes of ease, right? But we don't need to say it at all. So the point is that people get help. We assign labels, and then they have to somehow stick to that label. The other interesting part of that is that if you look for it, you will find it. So now that person who acted in a bully-like manner, when they were doing that, there were certain characteristics, right? They maybe yelled at a kid or made fun of them or tripped them, dipped their hair in ink. So now the next time when you see them, you see a little ink on their finger. You're going to look for it. You see it. Oh, they're still a bully. No, just playing with ink on the wall. Just a little inkwell and got some ink on it. But we're just automatically kind of programmed to go there. So what if we were to unprogram ourselves? Let the mom take care of any kind of behavior issues that need to be addressed with a child, and then hope for the best and be optimistic that, and kind of support change, because change is inevitable. We're all getting older. That's change. We're all learning new things. That's change. You get a new job, change. Okay, so just because it's comfortable for you to say that someone is, athletic, or that's the athlete, or it's an identifier for you, doesn't mean it's an identifier for that person. And somehow now it's impacting them, and it's not necessarily necessary. And like I said before, it's often mean. We do it intentionally to hurt people. And that's not okay. So then the other point is that if, so that takes care of the bully part. So on a global level is where I'm trying to go, and I'm trying to make a kind of a bigger leap. But you let me know if I'm successful in the comments. But if you take it to a bigger leap, kind of a broader scale, it's just, I was looking this up the other day because I was interested about it, and I was thinking about putting it in. Clearly, I am now. But when we look at stereotypes or labels for like American travelers, for example, since I'm American, I'll use that. But like, how hard is that to travel and have a label put on you? And how do you like it? Just curious, because again, I'm so curious about what people would say, because I think I know that I don't really like gum. I do like hamburgers and barbecue. Those are good. I'll go with that part of the label. The whole cowboy hat thing didn't really apply to me. I did ride a horse, but the images that they have are so old and don't really apply to 2022. But they still, make fun of them and use them. So, and Americans do on many cultures. I'm just going to say it like that. I'm going to get in trouble. Much easier to make fun of myself. But, and here's the point. So I'll get there. So when you're traveling abroad, how do you find it to be somebody in a foreign country? Because, okay, I'm going to jump to it. If in Berlin, for example, I also lived in Holland, they would thank me for something I had nothing to do with regards to World War II. I'm not that old. But, I had older people come up and hug me, just complete strangers, and thank me for being there. And I wasn't part of the military. I wasn't in the military. My dad was a pilot. So it really didn't apply to me twice. But I always thought that was interesting, just based on my nationality, that I was receiving thanks. And that applies to a lot of different professions, I think, in general, that people feel gratitude and want to express it in certain ways. But that was just, my example from when I lived in Germany. So happens negatively as well. I know that I've been very mistreated in certain countries. Again, I'm not going to mention those stories because they're just they weren't nice. And it's harder to get, in your own country, in your own culture, you can kind of, when someone's not being nice, you can kind of play back. But in somebody else's culture, you don't know what the norms are, and you don't know what the rules are. And so it's harder to kind of get to an equal grounding. Some people are very gifted, but again, I asked the question with regards to labels and with regards to Unity and Unity Week, which it is now Unity Week. How can we start not having to label and assign these kind of blanket statements that categorize a whole country of people, or a whole school or school system or inmates? How can we stop doing that? And again, I'm going to answer you. It goes with you, right? It's you just work on yourself. Because when you're feeling good about yourself and you just are more aware and intentional with how you act, how you educate, how you there's another one. But if you just are really paying attention to yourself, that starts radiating. And you're teaching your kids, and then you're teaching your neighbors, and then you're teaching your communities. And it can be positive. It doesn't have to be, you certainly don't want, like, you're a labeler, because then you're a labeler and you'll get nowhere. But if you just, kind of practice what you preach, I guess, and lead by example, that's the first step. And I think, you know what? I think that we can do it. I'm gonna say it. I do. I think I have a lot of faith in the human race, and I know right now, with after everything that's happened the past couple of years, and certainly what's happening abroad right now, it's hard to have faith in a lot of areas, and it's easier just to kind of fall back and be like, oh, why even try? But we have to. That's why. You have to. You have to live your best life, and you have to inspire, and you have to allow other people to live their best lives. And if it's your intention to live your best life by putting someone else down with a label, I'm going to argue that's not your best life. Yeah. So that is really what I've come to say. I feel like I'm kind of pulling this out right now because I feel like I'm missing something, but I want the conversation to continue. This is such a bigger subject than what we have time for here today, and it should be a conversation. It shouldn't just be me kind of spreading my little positive vibe. It should be a conversation between people, and it should be lots of stories. The label. I just heard this fantastic story. Now I have to figure out how to say it without, because I don't know what I can't say as far as this. But there's a company. I'm just gonna start. There's a company in north of where I live, and they were going under because of everything that happened with the pandemic. And the owners came forth and said, you know what, we're going to give it our go, and we are world class. And they got the whole company to get into the mindset of, we are not going down. We're not failures. We're not being labeled as a failure. We are world class. And you know what happened? They became newsworthy. Let's just put it that way. They did it. They were successfully saved their company, and bigger than they probably thought they could have been, with one mindset change, just a little shift in how they were thinking. And all of a sudden, they're world famous, and they inspired, and they were able to serve their clients and their patrons, and with some great service, and have them coming back and back for more, and then have someone talk about them at World Unity Week. How cool is that? So it really does impact people, and it really does affect change. And I know that I can do it. I know that you can do it. And so I want to continue this conversation because I think it's worthwhile. Don't you? I'd like to hear from you. Thank you for listening. And thank you, World Unity Week, for all the good that you do.